name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. So I just learned that it's Gay Pride Month in June. Did you guys know that? You should. Huh?
It popped up on Twitter.
Popped up on your Twitter feed? Yeah. So, and I left my lesson on the couch. That's not where it belongs. So, and I was going to go back, but then I have to drive. And it's like a mile and a half. It's okay.
Can I get the house key?
I'm in the Camry like an animal.
Oh, not even the test. Oh, no wonder.
Like I have a gas car like you dogs. So, so you're still blocking her. I want to see her.
Here.
Betak.
There. There's like more people coming.
I believe you. I believe you. So, actually, it's serendipity that, you guys know what that word means? Look it up. So, it's serendipity that I forgot the talk and that it's Gay Pride Month. So we'll put those two together and we'll talk about, this issue. Minnohum.
Oh,
All right. So, why don't you guys get closer? More loving.
I tried.
خش شوية. خش انت.
I got flamed for it.
Not flame for getting closer, flame for being in front of them.
There. Here.
All right, this way, yeah. This is much cozier. Allah. Sorry, you've got the worst job. You got to get up, the blanket, move the boba. Did you guys know that 302 closed?
what?
302, the one in Wholesome Choice. Yeah,
I didn't even know it existed.
See, that's why.
302 boba.
Boba spot.
You don't like boba? What are you, communist?
I got it right.
No with it. This is being recorded, people. Okay. All right, so I want to ask you guys, what do you think is the position of the Coptic Orthodox Church on this issue? And what do you think the position of the Coptic Orthodox Church should be on this issue? And what do you think is God's position on this issue? Thoughts? انتقد شوية this. Anyone? It's a difficult issue, isn't it? I know you all think things. Kira, what do you think?
I mean, I think that the church thinks that it's a sin, like many other sins, that should be struggled with.
Okay.
But at the same time, we should cover for the sins of others and not point fingers at them.
Okay.
And yeah, stuff like that.
That's good.
That's all from you, actually.
ربنا يخليك لي. So that it's a sin like all others, but that people should struggle against it. So what is it?
Gayness.
What do you guys think? What is it? Inti. What is it? سيبك مفتيح. What is it? He said it is a sin.
I think he was talking about like desire towards the same sex.
What do you guys think of his answer?
I might be wrong.
You most likely are. Otherwise, I would not be saying what I'm saying. افهم من الموضوع. What is it?
I think that's what I was intending, so homosexuality.
Homosexuality. Is homosexuality... What is homosexuality? The urge? The attraction? The action?
The action of homosexuality.
So is the attraction of homosexuality a sin? If you find yourself attracted to the opposite sex. Same sex.
Wait, because there's many types of attraction. What do you mean by attraction?
Sexual attraction. You're attracted to the other sex. To the same sex, sorry.
Akid, yeah, that's a sin.
Huh?
Akid, yeah, that's a sin.
Is it?
That's what I
So let me ask you this. What if you're attracted to the other sex? So you're a guy and you're attracted to girls. Is that a sin?
depends like the extent of the attraction. Right? Like lust.
Yeah.
I think the attraction itself is not a sin, but acting on the attraction is.
أيوة كده شايف الجامد. There he is, right? So, if you're heterosexual, you're attracted to the other sex, right? Is that a sin? No, God made you that way, right? Malay. Right? So, I see a girl and I think, oh, she's pretty, or I'm attracted to her. Obviously, that's just the way God made me. I can't turn that off, right? That's natural. But I can, but then I can take that further, right? I can start to lust after her. I can start to try to get with her. I can get with her. I can go further with that. Right now, it's moved into something different, right? So simply being attracted to someone is not a sin, right? That's just the way God made us, right? And this goes for everything, right? I mean, something like food. Is the desire to eat food a sin? No, of course not. If you didn't have the desire to eat food, you'd die, right? In fact, when someone doesn't have any desire to eat food, we have a big problem when we have to force feed him and inject vitamins and stuff in his system or her system because they could die, right? However, can I take that desire too far? Is there a sin of eating? What's it called? Gluttony. There's a sin called gluttony, which takes two faces. One face is the Coptic Orthodox face after the Chamassin, which is eat too much. That's gluttony. But what's the other kind of gluttony? You ever see people who are like, oh, I have to have this kind of food and this kind of wine and this kind of perfect thing, and I don't eat that unless it's with this and blah, blah, blah. That's gluttony, right? Where food becomes a god, right? So is the desire for money a sin? The desire for success a sin? The desire to achieve in life a sin? No. If you didn't have that desire, we'd all be, garbage collectors and just bums sitting in our parents' basement till we're 50. The desire to be independent. The desire to be rebellious. Is that a sin? Is rebellion a sin? No. Jesus was a rebel. Rebellion is an instinct given in us by God, and he gives it to us so that we can rebel against who? Who? More so, I don't really rebel against Satan. Like I can't even see him. If I go like that, I can't hit him. Who do I rebel against?
The world.
The world, right? The world tells me I have to have a certain haircut or hair, and I say no. I don't care about it. You have to dress a certain way, you have to talk a certain way, you have to act a certain way, you have to be a certain way. I don't care, right? What allows us to go to school and see all the kids acting one way and us to say, I'm not going to act that way and I don't care what anyone thinks is rebellion. And that's a very strong instinct. And it's an important instinct to foster in kids. You should teach them to be rebellious. God put rebellion in us so that we could rebel and not conform to the world and be like them. So that when everyone is doing it, we can say, I'm not going to be like everyone. I'm going to be my own person. Right? But then Satan takes rebellion and he does what? He messes with it. He says, now don't rebel against the world. Who should you rebel against? Your parents and God. The people who love you the most. And teenagers are so stupid, like, okay. Right? And so he says, don't rebel against, rebel against the people who love you the absolute most. That's who should rebel. And as teenagers, we fall for it for a while until we figure out it's dumb. And then we stop. Right? So anyway, all of these instincts are not sins. Right? But Satan can take them and turn them into something bad. So when you say it is a sin, the attraction is not a sin. Why not? Is the attraction part of God's plan for mankind? Part of God's plan for mankind. Did he design us to have same-sex attraction? I don't think so. God made Adam and Eve. Jesus said, for this reason, a man shall leave his mother and father and be joined to his wife. And if you took a biology class recently, you know that it just doesn't work the other way, right? You can't reproduce, you can't have babies, nothing really works the other way. In all of nature, it's a male and a female. So God didn't design us to have same-sex attraction. That wasn't the way he created us initially. Are some people born like that anyway? I think so. I have no idea. There are some correlations that show that in vitro trauma leads to same-sex attraction. There are some research that shows that there are some markers, genetic markers, that have a predisposition towards same-sex attraction. Same with genetic markers that give a predisposition towards anger or gambling or alcoholism, right? You know, these things actually run in families for a reason. Were they born this way? I don't know. Were they conceived this way? And then some no, and then something happened in vitro that, yeah, maybe. Were they born not this way, and then when they were 3, their uncle molested them and did something and messed with them, and so then they, maybe, were they born not this way, then when they turned 14 or 15, they got messed up because they were watching gay porn, and then they had friends who were thinking these things and talked them into it, and so then they kind of jumped along the bent, maybe. Does it matter? No, not really, right? We can say that maybe this wasn't the original plan, this wasn't the design, but was God's plan for the born blind man? Did God create us to be blind? No. Was that guy born blind? He was, right? Did God create us with defective hearts? Is God's plan for us to have defective hearts? No. Are some people born with defective hearts? Sure. Right? So what's the missing part here in all of this? So if it wasn't God's plan, we're talking about Gay Pride Month. So if it wasn't the original design, so what happened? What caused it? Same thing that caused the born blindness, right? There is something that happened as a result of the fall, some kind of non-design things that came into the, for example, death wasn't part of God's design either. What do we say in the prayer of the reconciliation? Death entered the world through the envy of the devil. So death entered the world, right? Disease entered the world. Injustice entered the world, right? Bad hearts and bad eyes entered the world. Bad genetics entered the world. Alcoholism entered the world. All of these things entered the world, right? So this wasn't part of God's design. This isn't what He intended for us. But this is what we have. We have all kinds of brokenness. And this is, as someone pointed out, just another one of them. Okay? So the attraction itself, I don't know why someone has that attraction. I don't even claim to understand it. I don't think anyone who can tell you this is why gay people exist knows what they're talking about. Because they don't, right? We don't understand COVID, right? We certainly don't understand this, okay? But in the end, it doesn't really matter, does it? Right? What we have is a situation where this arises, and it arose because of whatever, like I said, in vitro trauma, it arrived because of genetics and because of some molestation, because of some daddy-mommy issues, some weirdness. I don't know. I don't care. Right? But now I'm in the situation, I have this attraction, right? And so now what the church's position moving forward on that is, that's a struggle. That's a fight. All right? Just like I have a natural propensity to gamble or to anger or to violence or to whatever, right? And so now what is our role? And I think that's the more important part here, right? What if I'm not gay? which statistically is probably 95% of us, what's my role in all of this? Right? And I think this is where, as a church, as Christians, we have fallen short, like way short, right, of the calling we were asked. Because unfortunately, this issue has become a political issue, especially in the United States, right? It's Republicans versus Democrats, gay rights, marriage, insurance, whatever the case may be. And it clouded the vision of, I'm going to put them in air quotes, the Christians who live in the United States, because they stopped acting like Christians. And they started acting like hateful, bigoted people. And so the position of the church is simply this, right? That there is a person, a human being who's in the image of God, who is in pain, who is struggling, right? You know, the suicide rate among LGBT community is 500% of heterosexual, the same age, 5x, right? So this isn't a happy population. Depression through the roof, right? Pain through the roof. And you know, you don't have to think very hard to imagine this, right? Imagine someone in our community, 15-year-old boy, 16-year-old boy who's struggling. How does he feel? Pretty scared. Like, oh, this is not good. You know? What's Abuna gonna think? What's my dad gonna think? What are my friends gonna think? What's gonna happen to me if I come out? Right? So we know that we have a person who is in pain, who's suffering, who's confused, who's scared, who doesn't understand what is happening and why. And the church's position is that we have to ease that suffering any way we can. That's what we do. And it doesn't really matter what you are suffering from. The church's position is we ease suffering. How did Jesus do that? When he came into contact with someone who was suffering, how did he ease suffering? Yeah.
Like with the Samaritan woman, he
Yeah.
was very respectful when talking to her. He
Mhm.
didn't really point out, like, he didn't talk to her in a rough way, although, like, she might have deserved it because she did have a sinful life, but he still talked to her in a respectful way.
Okay. Can you think of a sinner he didn't talk to in a respectful and loving way? Like one? Yeah.
Inside the temple when he destroyed the
Ah. What kind of sinners were those sinners? No, tax collectors, you love those guys.
Sellers, right?
Huh? The Pharisees. So who are they? The clergy. So he turned on the clergy. The guys in black. So the only people he didn't treat nicely were the people who were religious, hypocritical, judgmental, and attacked others. And he used to say about them what? If you follow them, you won't get into heaven. They give you yokes, but they won't lift them with one finger. They won't touch the burden that they put on other people and just carry it a little bit. So who did he not like? Religious people who attacked others, who persecuted others, who were judgmental towards others. Sound like anyone we know? Yeah, all of us. Was there a sinner, and I just give me one, that he was harsh on? Never. In fact, what he did with most sinners was ridiculous. If he did it now, we would persecute him. We'd be like, what are you doing, bro? You don't get Christianity, do you? Let me show you how we do this Coptic style. Begezma. This person we attack, we shame, we attack his parents, we cancel them, we go after them. That's how we do this, because we're real Christians. If Jesus came now, he'd be kicked out of half of our churches. Frankly. Right? So, how did he handle sinners? Respectfully, lovingly. Did he point out to them their sin? Did he start with a verse from Leviticus saying, let me tell you why you're going to burn in hell? Let me tell you about Sodom and Gomorrah. Let me tell you what God does to people like you. Is that how he starts the conversation? Let me go further. Do any of the fathers, the desert fathers, and the saints of our church start conversations like that? All right. You guys know the story of Saint Macarius and the pagan priest? It's one of my favorite stories. Saint Macarius, and he has a disciple, and they're walking, and the disciple walks a little faster. He walks ahead, and he sees a pagan priest doing, pagan things. So the disciple goes, "You're a devil worshiper." Right? Because he is. Was the disciple wrong? The guy is literally conjuring up spirits, part of his pagan rituals. What did the pagan priest do to this disciple who spoke the truth? Your hair got longer. Well, I'm gamut. What I do for hair longer. Oh, glory days. What did this pagan priest do to this disciple who spoke the truth to him? He beat the crap out of him. In fact, he beat him up so bad he almost killed him. So we got a pagan priest, devil worshiper, doing bad things. The disciple calls him out. He beats him up. St. Macarius walks up. And he goes, "You are so weary from doing so many things. Greetings, weary person, tired person." And this pagan priest looks at him and says, "Why are you greeting me like this?" And he says, "Because you just seem to be working really hard, and I'm worried that you're working hard on something that isn't the truth." And this pagan priest says, "You know what? After this conversation, I want to be a Christian. And in fact, I want to become a monk." And in fact, this pagan priest became a monk. All right. So let's do a little case study here. We have a pagan priest, and we have two approaches. Approach one, you're a devil worshiper. This pagan priest almost kills the guy. Approach two, St. Macarius says, "Greetings, weary sojourner." Now, let me ask you something. If I said to you, "Greetings, weary sojourner," or something canned like that, would you be all that moved and touched? Is it a very loving thing? I mean, when you read it, you're like, "Really, bro, that's what he said?" And you're all of a sudden melting and gushing and saying, "How do you know me?" And, "Why are you greeting me so nicely?" So let me ask you a question. What's missing in the story? What's missing in the story? I mean, if I said the words that St. Macarius said, none of you would be like all that. Whatever, you'd be like, "All right, old man, greetings, weary person."
Action.
Okay, getting close.
Talking about God.
Okay, getting close.
Was it the time?
I mean, he just beat up the monk a few seconds earlier, so... Oh, you mean because he just beat up the other guy?
There's a difference between...
Like the language at the time.
Maybe, but I mean, he didn't say all that. Wasn't that nice? So what are we missing? The way he said it. If you guys ever met a saint, one of these really cute people, right? The super saints, and they look at you, and in their face, all you feel is what? Love. And you just melt, right? There's some people, and they just smile, and the face really is all you need. In fact, this was even said about which saint? Saint Anthony. You guys remember this story? There's 4 people that would come visit him, these philosopher guys. 3 of them would sit there and ask a bunch of questions. The 4th guy just sit there quiet, and Saint Anthony, after a few visits, goes, "Hey, how come you never say anything?" And what did he say? "Father, it's enough for me to look at your face." That doesn't come through in the storybooks, does it? In the writings. That this guy would walk for 3 days so he can check out someone's face. So what was St. Macarius' face like? Have you guys ever met one of these people? I have. I've sat with hermits and just been overwhelmed by their presence. So when St. Macarius looked at him, he looked at him with what? Pure love. And it did what? Melted him. And then St. Macarius ended that experience with a saying. He said, and this is very important, the evil word makes the good man evil. And the good word makes the evil man good. Believe me, you guys would go far in life if you just remembered that saying. The good word makes even the evil man good. And the evil word can take someone who is otherwise good and turn them evil. Right? So how do we interact with a sinner? Any sinner. All the same way Jesus did. Right? And that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing stigmatizing them, othering them, bigotry, hatred, horrible things. They're going to go to hell, they. And as soon as you make a group that's a they and an us, we have a problem, right? As soon as a sinner, any group of sinners, liars, adulterers, murderers, name the thing, judgers, controllers, haters, whatever, as soon as they become not me, other, and I am over here, forgive me, you're no longer a Christian. I don't know what you are. You may think you're God, little mini Jesus. I don't know what you think you are. But when I can condemn an entire group of people from some position of power and holiness because I have achieved it, because of myself or whatever, and I can even lie and say something stupid like, well, no, it's because God has given me grace, and just make some crap up so I can feel better about myself. You're no longer a Christian. A Christian is united with everyone, including the sinners. Was Jesus united with sinners? Was he? What did they used to say about him? What did they tell his disciples? Your master is a winebibber who eats with the harlots and drinks with tax collectors. Why'd they say that? Were they lying? That's where he was. That's where he hung out. That's where he had dinner. So he wasn't othering anybody. He never othered anybody. In fact, the worst people, that's where he went. He went right to them. He didn't say, no, I don't want to interact with them because, the bad company corrupts good morals and I'm good morals and they're bad company. Yeah, I mean, when you're 11, okay, sure. But you're 29, bro. You're 59, bro. You're 89, bro. Let's hold off on the, bad company corrupts good morals. So are you saying you have good morals? Oops. Right? Now we have a bigger problem. So this position of haughtiness, of arrogance, of hubris, of pride, of we are the church and they are not, we are God's people and they are not, we are the chosen ones and they are not. This is not Christianity. Christ came for everybody, it turns out. Right? And in fact, St. Athanasius says when he died on the cross, he even died with his arms out. I came for everybody. Right? And so when we can take a whole class of people, the most broken people, the people whose suicide rate's 5x that of the rest of us, and say, it's too bad God doesn't love you. Forgive me, you become a monster. You're no longer a Christian. I don't know what you are. And then it gets worse. you think you're doing it in God's name. God wants me to hate. God wants me to hate these people. God wants me to persecute them. Does he? Did he? If Jesus was here, where would he be? He'd be right there. He'd be with them, and his face would do what? Bring them. What did Matthew do? What was Matthew's name before he was Matthew? What was Matthew before he was Matthew? Huh? Matthew was a what? He's a tax collector. He's one of the bad people. What was his name? Levi. He's a bad man. Very bad man. Right? So he was a tax collector named Levi. Jesus called him and said, "Follow me." He left everything and did. It's kind of weird. And then what did Matthew do right after that? He threw a party for other tax collectors. And he says, "You got to meet this guy." Now, why would he do that? Tax collectors, give me background. What were tax collectors in those days? Huh?
Very bad.
Why?
They would steal money from others.
They stole money from innocent people. From which people? The poor people? Worse. No, not Christians. Who did they steal money from? Their own people. Right? It's like, Russia invading Ukraine, right? And then some Ukrainians turn and start giving the Russians money from their own people and extracting taxes after Russia conquers Ukraine. Now, what are most Ukrainians doing? We will die fighting against this, right? So the tax collectors turn on their own people, would steal from their own people so they can pocket the difference and give the money to... So these people were horrible. Do you think the Jews liked them? No. Do you think the scribes and the Pharisees would say, you know what? We need to forgive them because they're good people and maybe they'll go to heaven? No. They were demonized as the worst humans on earth. Deal? So, how do you think when a tax collector walked down the street among his own people with the protection of Roman guards who are outside soldiers in a foreign country being protected by Roman guards, when he walked down the street, how do you think people looked at him? Disgustingly. How many people do you think spit as he walked by? Everybody. How many people cursed at him? Everybody. How often? I hate those things. How often do you think people cursed at them?
No way.
See, when a man with a reflective vest says anything, you go, yeah, that's the right thing to do.
No, the way she was holding her wrist.
It's good that they said something. Okay. So how do you think these people were looked at? Tax collectors? You get what I'm saying, don't you? I want you to imagine an image. They're looked at the same way the gay population is looked at today by Christians. That same loathing, that same hatred. Maybe it was even worse for the tax collectors, right? Because they would actively spit. Now there are laws against that. But maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, yeah, gays would just get jumped, beat up, spit upon, attacked, ridiculed, mocked openly. Horrible things done to them. And so Matthew says to all of these people, I'm going to have a party and I'm going to invite this guy to the party. And you guys got to meet this guy. Why would he do that? Think of the St. Macarius story. Okay. Yeah. This guy smiles at us. This guy looks at us, and he doesn't look at us with that scowl that everyone else looks at us like. He looks at us and he loves us. You guys got to meet him. He's just going to look in your eyes and he's going to love on you. That's what he does. So he throws a big party for all the other tax collectors. Says, come to my house. This guy's going to look in your eyes and he's not going to hate you. Unlike everyone you've ever met up until this moment who's hated you for who you are and what you do. That's Christianity, right? So whenever we find ourselves othering and hating and looking down on any person for anything, for any crime, for any sin, then you don't have the eyes of Christ. You have someone else's eyes. So what's the church's position? We want to do exactly what Matthew did at that party. We want to bring the tax collectors and we want to put Jesus, so you guys got to meet this guy. What did Jesus say to the tax collectors? Did he say, hey, you're a piece of garbage? It says in Leviticus you're going to go to hell? Do you think the party would last very long if he did? Kind of a downer party, I'd assume. So what do you think he did? What do you think he said when he met them? I don't think he said much at all. And you think him just not saying much and just looking into their eyes with love would make them leave tax collecting? It did for Matthew. Matthew left being a tax collector because this guy looked in his eyes and loved him. And he said, follow me. Did he give him a speech? Did he tell him about his country, honor, duty, turning on your own people, stealing from others, the 10 Commandments? Did Jesus say any of those things? He said, follow me. Is that something that would make anyone leave a lot of money? Tax collectors were loaded. What did Zacchaeus say after he after he became a Christian, after he followed Christ? What did he say? Half of my goods I give to the poor. That's a lot of freaking money. And then when he's left over, then he said what? If I have taken anything by false accusation, I return it fourfold. So first I give away half my money, and then I'm going to 4x it, whatever I've taken by false accusation. How much money does this guy have? This guy's Elon Musk. So is this a good job? Tax collecting? Best job in town. And so you're going to leave this job because some guy looked at you and said, follow me? And what kind of person is a tax collector? An accountant. Worst kind of people. And are accountants known to be emotional? Even have a personality? No. They're horrible people who just calculate based on debits and credits. And if it doesn't add up, they're very thoughtful and logical and numerically based. And I'm sure you do the math, and following this homeless guy around doesn't pay as well as being a tax collector. So why would anyone do that? It must have been the look. It must have been the smile. He smiles at me. He looks right in my eyes and he loves me. So yeah, I'll give it all up. Because when Zacchaeus climbed a sycamore tree, and he was a wee little man, and he climbed up, and as Jesus walked by, he looked right at him and he says, today I'm going to eat in your house. And the guy just goes nuts and says, I'm going to give away all my money. What happened? What happened? It's the look. It's the St. Macarius thing. It's the St. Anthony thing, right? So sometimes I see people have a look of utter disgust, and, you know, this goes better in Arabic, but it's like Rabbina walla fihum, Rabbina yakhudhum, Rabbina mش عارف ايه, and all kinds of horrible things about these people. So the church's position is always, we do what? We do what Matthew did. We take sinners, who's who? Is that anyone you know? And we bring them to Christ. And we put them in the presence of Christ. And then what happens? I don't care. That's not my business. That's not my job. When I bring someone to Christ, let Christ do whatever Christ is going to do with that person. However Christ wants to interact with that person, that's his call, not mine. I don't teach people how to be follow and be a good Christian, and this is how you have to act, and this is what you. No. I'm going to put you next to Christ. Say, knock yourself out, bro. Live your life. Meet him, and then do whatever. St. Augustine has this quote. He says, "What? Love God, and do whatever you want." Love God and do whatever you want. And so this has to be the attitude of the Christian, correct? Not, I'm going to control you. This is how you pray. This is what you do. You have to act like this. Stand now, sit now, matanya now, do this, blah, blah, blah. Make these motions. This is Christianity. No. Meet Christ, and then you guys figure it out. Right? So this is our role during Gay Pride Month. Is our role as Christians is to have that face. I mean, I'll tell you guys something. Many of the youth are asked, so what's your position on homosexuality? What do you think? Blah, 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 blah. Okay? And I get, like in some classroom debate, this happening. But I'm going to offer something to you that may be a little harsh, but I believe it to be true, which is if you have a gay friend and they ask you what you think, then you aren't reflecting God's love. Because they shouldn't have to ask. If they know how much you love them, I'm not saying accept the lifestyle, accept the sin, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of people I love and I know their sin. That doesn't affect my love for them at all, right? Because guess what? I'm a sinner too. Remember that part? So if your gay friend has to ask you, what do you think of me and what do you, blah, blah, then you aren't reflecting Christ to them. They don't know you love them. Work harder. Be more of that face. Because your friend shouldn't have to ask you. They should just know. And they'll know, oh yeah, I know they go to church. I know what their church's position is. And that doesn't matter to them at all. It really doesn't. Because in the end, I know how much you love me. Warts and all. And that's really what we all want, isn't it? In fact, this is the human condition. The human condition, the reason we are made complete in marriage is the human condition is that when I'm married, someone will get to know me, warts and all, sins and all, brokenness and all, look at me and say, I still love you. As stupid and disgusting and as controlling and as crazy and as selfish as you are. It's beautiful. That's what we want. I can just be me and you go, still love you. Really? Even when I do these, still love you. That's what we want. Right? No human is different than that. Okay. Any questions? Faddal.
Okay, I have a couple. Okay, so you said about the part where if they ask you, what you think about them, So this is kind of like a 2-in-1. So don't some people they want like reassurance, right? Even though they might know that you love them, And in relation to that, how do you, and I'm trying to make this sound nice, because with love comes encouragement, right? So how do you show someone love like that
without encouraging
telling
their
them that
action?
It's okay to do this.
Okay, these are good questions. So the first thing, did you notice in his question, he said them. As soon as he said that, I jolted. You didn't see me jolt, but inside I jolted. Why did I jolt? Because if there's a them, there's an us. And us ain't them. They ain't us. They are different than us. So right off the bat, as soon as he said them, and as soon as you say that to any person, you lost the face. Because even Jesus was us with them in that situation, right? In fact, he became so us that he became a human being. And he became a homeless human being. Right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is, he said, how do I show love without encouraging? Let me ask you a question. It's my February. So when, that was inappropriate. When, totally missed it, Michael. It was pretty good too. When, Fredu, and you would have loved it, out of fikr. Anyway. Huh? I just made a really funny joke, but you missed it. You had to be there and be present.
Listen to the recording.
Listen to the recording. What was I going to say? Oh, so how do you love someone without encouraging them in their behavior? All right, let's just take name a human being in your life. Anyone. 7 billion of them on earth. Pick one. How do you love them without encouraging them in their sin? Can you? Pretty easily. How did St. Macarius not encourage the pagan priest? Because it is pagan. It is devil worship. Best I know, St. Macarius is not into that. And yet he said nice, loving things with a loving smile. And yet the pagan priest didn't say, oh, I guess we should worship the devil. And he was encouraged to continue. He actually encouraged him. And yet it didn't do what we thought. So let me, yeah, go ahead.
Actually,
No, go ahead.
no, because I realized it's not a question. I just wanted to say something. It's okay.
What do you want to say?
Well, I was just gonna say like sorry. I feel like 9 times out of 10, people know their sins. Like they know what they're doing is wrong. You don't have to tell them. By the way, did you know what you're doing is wrong? Because they know. So I feel like your automatic response should not be that.
The reason I let her continue is because I knew she was going to say something beautiful like that. And the only thing I will correct is it's not 9 times out of 10, it's 99 out of 100. Actually, 99.9. Except in his case where he doesn't realize.
I have a counter question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But-
See, I'm
but,
just
like,
zinging him in.
Nowadays,
Them.
I know in like our church we consider it as like a sin, but nowadays with it being so like regulated, I guess.
You mean law-wise?
No, as in like socially accepted.
Socially accepted, yeah.
It's not really, or whoever it is, you know, it doesn't. They don't
No.
think of it as a thing, as a sin.
Okay, so, first of all, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I think what you feel when you feel a strong reaction, I mean, so the question is, do the others, they don't know that it's a sin. And these others, by the way, are a lot of Coptic youth. And why are they like that? Most of the time, they are reacting to something too harsh. So, I think most of the time people know what's right and wrong. But they don't want to be called out, intimidated, attacked for being them. And so when you do that, and they say, then there's nothing wrong with it. Right? It's kind of like when you get in a fight with your friend and you say, you know what your problem is? You're just stupid. And that's how you start the discussion, which is always a good way to start a fight. Kidding. And then the friend goes, well, you know what your problem is? Okay? And now, you know, we're just off to the races, right? We got another 3 hours of this. So, should that be the first thing out of your mouth? Ever? No. Right? The evil word makes the good man evil, and the good word makes the evil man good. I'll tell you guys a story. This is a parable. It's not a real story. There is a guy who married a woman, and the wife was not pretty, ugly. Okay? And his friend went to the wedding, and he hadn't seen the bride. He sees her, he goes, dang, but ugly. And then 5 years later, he leaves the wedding. 5 years later, he meets up with his friend and his wife. And he looks at her and he goes, calls his friend over and he says, are you married to the same person? And he said, yeah. He goes, oh. He goes, why? He goes, because, I was at your wedding 5 years ago and she was pretty ugly. And your wife is beautiful. Plastic surgery, Newport Coast. What happened here? You want lip job because that makes people look good. Kidding. I had another one. I've had like 11 surgeries. So, what are you talking about? So, he says, your wife is beautiful now. And you know what the guy said? This is a parable. He says, every day I tell her, you're so beautiful. And she became beautiful because I told her she is. This is how humans are. It's so true. Obviously, in the case of a physical thing, that's going to be impossible. Okay? But in the case of the spiritual, it is. The good word makes the evil good. When you have a really rotten kid, so I'll tell you, I was at a retreat this weekend with junior high, high school, and college kids from the hood, all right? And there's this one kid there. Huh?
What church?
I'm not going to tell you.
What's the kid's name?
I'm not going to tell you. And there were several kids there who could just be described as little Satans, ninth graders. And there's, and they're loud and they're obnoxious and they're just all over the place, like just little Michael Scanners running everywhere. Okay? And some of the parents, some of the chaperones were like, these kids are horrible. They're bad influences on my children. I don't want anything to do with them. They're wild animals. Okay? And I'll tell you guys a true story. And some of you know who this person is, but I won't tell you the name. There is a kid who's just like that kid. Okay? And he was in high school. He was a terror. You can all think of one in your church, right? Just a freaking terror kid. Okay? He set things on fire, right? And I remember he was in high school and I remember him just being this horrible kid, but I don't remember this story. He reminded me of this story 10 years later. Anyway, so he said some old man went up to him and go, this kid is a horrible kid. He does all these things. He's blah, blah, blah. And he's da, 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 right? This guy was telling me. And I remember this, but I don't remember exactly what this kid said. He said, you put your arm around me and you said, this kid is a great kid. And this kid is going to be a great kid. And he said, you defended me. And I'm like, I don't remember. This guy is now like this amazing servant who practically runs a church and is a youth leader and is just a fantastic guy. And this kid at this retreat reminded me of him when he was young. And Justin, my son, came up to me and goes, that kid is a nightmare. That kid is bad, blah, blah, blah. And he said, that kid is exactly like, and I told him the name of the person. He's like, really? So, what is that saying? It's saying even these bad kids, bad people, they need encouragement. And when you tell a bad kid, you're a bad kid, that is not the right answer. The first thing you do with a bad kid is you say what? You're a good boy. Is that encouraging bad behavior? Is it? What did the prodigal son's father say when his son said, I would like money to go hang out with harlots? Did he encourage him? Did the prodigal son think, wow, my dad wants me to spend half his inheritance with hookers? Wow, my dad's encouraging this. He likes this. He thinks it's the right thing to do. Do you think the prodigal son had that thought? Do you? That was the time, that was actually quite fine. There were, in fact, bathhouses in Roman times where orgies happened. This was common in the Roman times. You think morals are bad now? They were horrible then. Worse than now. In many ways. At least now it's hidden-ish. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, you can continue.
So I think it's like I think they're all attracted to my hair. They want to eat what's left of it. They want to eat like hair follicles, I guess. So I think we have to be very careful with this. I don't want to encourage this behavior. So I'm going to come down on these people because they exhibit bad behavior. Because if you go through your church and you go through your friends and you go through your family and you go through yourself, you realize, oh, I have a lot of those bad things. And sitting there, St. Macarius has another quote. He says, if you take a piece of steel and you want to bend it and you want to form it into a sword or something else, what do? He says, what if you hit it with a hammer? Does it bend? If you want to take it and make it into something curvy, you can hit a piece of steel with a hammer as much as you want. You won't bend it. How do you do it? You melt it. And he says, you melt it with the fire of God's love. And when it's melted, it's malleable. And then you can form it into anything you want without violence, without anger, because it's melted. These are our fathers. Now, if you go in the Quran, it's got different things. And if you go in Judaism in the Old Testament, it says different things. And if you go to some fundamentalist Christians, they say different things. And if you go to some in our Coptic community, unfortunately, they say different things. They say hammer. Hit it with a hammer. Yes, Kira.
I think what you're saying, it makes sense to me, with respect to the Coptic Christians, or like the people that are our age, or the Coptic people that are gay, and the people that we know that are friends with us that are gay. But I think where I'm not getting it is, like, if I go to, like, obviously I'm not going to, so maybe this is why you didn't discuss it, but like if I go to like a club that like promotes LGBTQ-ness at school, and I go and I do exactly what St. Macarius said, and I tell them like, oh, you guys look like weary sojourners, and then I have the same conversation that St. Macarius had. I don't think they're gonna think that what they're doing is wrong, because it's just like, in their minds, it's like being gay is how God made me, or for some of them, being gay is like being gay and there's no God. So I feel like what you're saying makes sense for like some cases, but I don't think it can, I don't know if it does apply to every single.
You're absolutely right. So look at the approach Christ took. Let's go back. In discussing any issue with anyone, right? So let me ask you, when you go to your father in confession and you say, I'm doing this thing, Dahlia, right? And Dahlia's on the phone, Michael. And so I'm doing this thing, and your father says, it's okay, I was going to call you out. I mean, I'm sorry, did I call you out? Did I put you on blast accidentally? Are you texting Michael? So, so bad. It's abuse of power is what it is. It's my job. Am I talking about, what did I say?
Christ confession.
Yes, if I go to my father in confession and I tell him, I'm having this issue, he says, you better stop that issue. That's wrong. And you go, yeah, I know, I'm going to try. He's like, well, if you don't stop it, I'm not going to give you communion. Say it's a really big issue. And you say, yeah, I know. How come you're taking it and the kids at the LGBT club plus aren't going to take it? What are the differences? It's like 30 differences, right? You're raised in the church, you're a Christian, you're struggling, you're trying to become a better person, you realize this is a sin, okay? So should I take the same approach that Abuna gave with you? Should I go do that to the LGBT club? Hey guys, let me tell you what my father in confession said at the Coptic Orthodox Church. His name is Abuna Daniel and Abuna Macarius or Abuna Mancarios, and this is what he said to me when I was confessing, and I will say the same thing to all of you now. Is that a good idea? Smart? That's what the first disciple did in the St. Macarius story. He did that approach. Hey, let me tell you what my father in confession said to me. I'm now going to tell it to the pagan priest. Right? So there's a huge difference in the way I interact with a Christian or with a non-Christian. Even within a Christian, someone who's struggling and someone who isn't struggling. Someone who's strong in their faith, someone who isn't strong in their faith. Right? And so as a very discerning father, I'm going to carefully craft my message depending on who's in front of me. In fact, the same Abuna, right? Abuna Philemon can say one thing to you and he would say something different to me, even though we're both Coptic Orthodox Christians who are struggling in confession, right? And he'll say something very different to someone at the LGBT club, right? So by no means do we say the same thing to everybody. That isn't me watering down my message. St. Macarius wasn't watering down his message. He didn't think, he wasn't encouraging paganism. He was looking at his audience, right? And the reason I don't water down my message actually has something to do with pride, right? Because sometimes someone will say, Bus, أنا ريحت ضميري. I said the truth. I said what had to be said, right? And what did I do? So who are you focused on? Right? These are the righteous taunts in the church when some girl who hasn't been to church in 3 years and her father in confession has begged her to come to church and her parents have begged her to come to church, her servants have begged her to come to church, she finally comes back and some tant says, what are you wearing? This is go to hell. Right? And tant walks back so happy, and I said the truth. I said the truth. The dress was here, it's supposed to be here. I said the truth. And I'm before God, I am innocent. And she is so self-righteous and so full of herself, right? Because she's not thinking about who? The sinner. She couldn't care less about the sinner. This is about me saying what I need to say, because I'm going to speak the truth to whoever at all costs, because I'm a martyr. Okay? Now, what did Christ do? Did he speak the truth? Always. You're right. You don't have a husband. You had 5. And the one you're with is not. And when he met the adulterous woman, he says, go and sin no more. Right? Did Christ ever tell these people, yeah, you should be a harlot. It's a good job and the benefits are good. It's got a good medical plan? No. So what did he do? It's the order that matters. So what we're debating here isn't the position. The position I stated at the very beginning of the talk. Right? It's the approach. The approach is our problem, not the position. Make sense? We all know the position. The approach has to be loving and pastoral. So let's look at the story of the adulterous woman who was caught in adultery. The law says you have to throw rocks at her till you kill her. That's the law. Correct? What did Jesus do? He told her at the very end of the story what? Go and sin no more. Did he start with go and sin no more? Is that the first sentence out of his mouth? Hey, slut, what are you doing? You should be stoned. That's what Leviticus says. You're going to go to hell. What did he do first? He saved her life. Okay? And then after he saved her life, what else did he do? He looked at her tenderly and compassionately. He didn't make her feel bad. He made the bad people who were wanting to kill her go away. So they weren't looking at her. So she wasn't getting the looks. And the only look she was getting was his face. And his face was what? All love. So can you imagine what you would be like in that position? If someone stops a bunch of people from killing you, then doesn't judge you, gives you that look of love, and makes all the people who are looking at you harshly go away. How do you feel towards that person? How do you feel?
Great.
You'd be like, I will do anything you want, right? She probably looked up at him and said, I will do anything for this guy. What is she? Now. She's a Christian. He converted her. How did he convert her? Did he tell her about Leviticus? He didn't even bring it up. How did he convert her? He built a relationship with her. Now, he did it really fast, okay? But he built the relationship first, and he did it in a few minutes. I don't know how long he did it, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. It may take me a few months, few years. And then, once I have that relationship, and that person is looking at Christ and saying, I will do anything for then I say, go and sin no more. Correct? So, again, it's about the approach, not about the position. Does that make sense? Jason had a question. Sorry, go ahead.
So, like, something you've kind of been talking about the entire time is like love, but an issue that I face is like because of my own pride, like it's like in my nature to kind of judge, and like a lot of the fathers say like to see everyone as like greater than you, and it's like how you can truly love.
Mm-hmm.
But like how can I kind of like work towards that?
That's a very good question. He asked for those of you, he's like, how I'm a judgmental person, I'm kind of a jerk, I think is what you said exactly. Luckily, as an archdeacon, I'm not judgmental. I'm way up here, right? So, unless it's Micah Scanner, then I judge just without any rhyme or reason, right? But, so how do I get myself to not judge these people? Okay. It's actually very easy in this case. Because if you think about what, as a church, as a Christian, we're asking of them. I mean, what's the ask here? So if you go up to your father in confession, you say, hey, Abuna, I'm really attracted to girls. I'm crazy about girls. I want to have sex. And I can't wait. I want to have sex. What's Abuna going to say? He's going to say, Habibi, when you get married a few years, you can have as much sex as you want. Just have to wait a few years. Deshway. Take a cold shower. Right? But then, which doesn't work, by the way. I don't know where that came up. I don't know who came up with that stuff. And then, if we just push them over, they'll stop. You don't need to really push them over. You just need to run out, scare them. They'll wobble and fall. And then eventually they'll know that's too fast. Anyway.
Very loving.
Yeah, no, it's not at all. Listen, do as I say, not as I do. Right, so, what was I saying? So, you go to Abuna and you say, I want to... Now, if, say, someone who has same-sex attraction goes to Abuna and says, Abuna, I have same-sex attraction. It's very strong. I've tried to fight it. I can't. It's been several years. And I really want to have sex. What does Abuna say to them? No. What does he say? He says, no. You're not going to have sex. When? When will I? Never. Well, how about, can I watch pornography? No. Can I masturbate? No. So what am I supposed to do? You're just supposed to sit there and burn like that until you die. That's the ask. That's what we're asking of them. There are some fathers in the church who say, these guys are the new martyrs. Because we're asking something of them that we couldn't touch with our little finger. And when you can say, well, monks do that, yeah, monks pick that. They tried to become a monk. They wanted it. They chose it. They prayed about it. It wasn't forced on them, right? So when I look at these people and what we're asking of them, it's pretty easy to have a lot of compassion, right? Father Greg Boyle has this great quote. He says, instead of looking at people with great crosses, with big crosses, and having compassion on them, we judge the way they are carrying their cross, right? And that's what's happening here. These people have a cross, and instead of being compassionate toward that cross, which is all I'm really suggesting today, we judge the way they carry their cross. So I look at them, what they're wearing, what they do, and the way they act. These guys are messed up, right? Their families probably are not happy with them, may have disowned them, may have persecuted them, may have physically attacked them. Their whole lives, they may have been mocked by others. Their fathers may have rejected them. Their mothers may have, right? So, unlike, like when I sin, right? When I lie, I pick that, right? I just said, you know what? I'm going to lie. And I could have not lied, but I did anyway. A lot of these guys don't have that choice. They have a choice for the action, but that attraction, and it's very hard for you to convince me that some 16-year-old boy in the Coptic church who was raised in Sunday school his whole life says, you know what, I'm pissed off at my dad. I think I'm going to go be gay. That'll show him. Like it's a choice. It's no choice, right? The people in these positions are in a lot of pain. They go to drugs. They commit suicide. They're depressed. They keep this stuff from their parents. They keep it from everyone. They're scared. You don't tell me this is a choice. No one chooses this life. No one chooses this life. So I'd say it's easy not to judge them. Yes, sorry.
So then, I agree with what you said so far. So then, why does the church then excommunicate people who, have rather than, I don't know what exactly happened, but, in my church, in this situation, a girl got excommunicated because she has come out. And not only, does everyone in church judge her, but they also judge, her parents. They're like, oh, they didn't know how to raise her right. But then, her sister, no one, the reason her last boyfriend broke up with her is because of her sister was, gay. So he's like, oh, I don't want anything to do with my identity. It's this whole thing. So I'm like, why do that if we're supposed to, no.
That story pains me beyond words. So the first thing I'll say is, I don't know why she wasn't excommunicated because she has same-sex attraction. That's not what happened. No, if that's the case, we'll excommunicate the priest.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not.
No.
She got married and stuff
But I'm saying,
yeah.
You said, why do we excommunicate them? We don't,
Okay.
ever. For that, right? So if she did get excommunicated, which again, excommunication isn't a lifetime sentence. It's you shouldn't take communion while you're in this sin or while this is happening, or and this can happen if someone's in an adulterous relationship, right? And he says, Abuna, I'm not going to give up this adulterous relationship, and I don't care about my wife. And then Abuna may say, you know what? Then don't take communion in this state. Why don't you wait a month, think about what you're doing, and then take communion, because you're cheating on your wife and you're hurting your family. That's excommunication, right? But it's not go set yourself on fire, right? It's, think about it. I can't give you communion in this state. So that's the first thing. So no one gets excommunicated for having this attraction. In fact, when I was with the priest this last week, the amount of sympathy and compassion they had is extraordinary. The way they interacted and talk about how they handle these situations was actually beautiful and very inspiring, right? And it's with great reluctance that they ever take an action like that, So I don't know what happened, but I will say that as a congregation, it's very important not to judge either the person or the priest, And what the people did, I mean, God have mercy on their souls. I don't know what to say. In fact, at the end of this, we had these little breakout groups with the priests. I actually didn't speak. I just kind of moderated. At the very end, I said, Abunas, as a personal favor, please talk to your congregations about judgment. This is driving away the youth, the judgment of the parents, and that arrogance, and that please keep talking about that. And unfortunately, one of the priests responded to me and said, look, Christians are just very judgmental people. We've always been judgmental. And I was not happy with that answer, even a little bit. I saw a lot of other priests just go, all right. But
Who's the priest?
so, anyway, it happens at the clergy meeting stays. So, but anyway, so the judgmentalness of people. Look, all I can tell you is people suck, and don't judge them for sucking, or else you're going to be like them, right? So the best you can do is just be a better you. Just don't be like them, right? Find that person who is ostracized and just love on them. That's it. Reach out, call them, I miss you, let's get coffee. Don't talk about anything related to LGBTQ. Just say, how's school? How's everything? How's life? Right? And just show them love. That's it. That's all you can do as one person. Yes?
So there's, whenever you talk about the subject in general, you'll get to the point where, especially if you're talking to someone who's, who's had many conversations about that and is like, especially like immersed in the community, I guess, they'll bring up the point of love is love, right? Where it's like, it's because you're having an attraction to someone, it's a form of love. And so if you're looking down upon that, then you're kind of constricting love. And how do you look at that in terms of, like, I'm not blocking a good thing, but I'm just trying to, like, I don't know how to explain it.
This the whole love is love argument isn't, obviously a very good one, right? Because a lot of this isn't love, it's lust, right? I mean, the math of the statistics of this is, gay same-sex attraction tend to have dozens of partners, right? I mean, there are people who have a single partner, but that's usually not the case, right? It's actually a far more lustful lifestyle, unfortunately, right? Now, you could say that's because they're not allowed to marry and blah, 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 right? The other part of love is it's in response to a political problem, okay? The political problem is there are people in the United States who think these people should not get married, okay? That is not my problem, right? That is Congress's problem, right? And even Pope Francis at some point said whether or not a country should allow a civil union of, you don't want to use the word marriage, fine, use whatever word you want to use, right? What they're looking for is equal right under the law, equal protection under the law, right? So if my partner gets admitted to the emergency room, right, I can't sign for them because I'm nothing. I'm not related to them, right? They're going to say, where's your mom and dad? Well, he hasn't lived with his mom and dad for 30 years because they threw him out of the house. I'm the only living person who can, right? So these are the kinds of things that the law deals with. Right? Who signs at an emergency room? I work at a company and I get health insurance. Now my partner can get health insurance. I die, who gets inheritance? This is what the law deals with, right? Marriage is something that happens in a church. Sacramental marriage is something, that's a sacrament, that's a mystery, right? And that happens only in a church, okay? And it doesn't matter what the law says, right? The church is going to marry whoever the church deems fit to marry, right? And if someone tries to come into the Coptic church and say you have to marry someone who you do not deem you should be married, I'll be the first one at the door with the gun, right? And say, absolutely not. This doesn't happen. You cannot enter into the church and force it to do anything. Okay? So when that happens, you don't just set the line. You stand there with your body and you say, over my dead body. Right? But barring that, a lot of the arguments you're hearing are political arguments. Right? They should be allowed to marry. They should have the same rights as me. Right? These are legal issues. I haven't talked about those. Right? And when Christ was asked, should we give taxes to Caesar? He says, give to Caesar what's Caesar's. My kingdom is not of this world. Right? In Egypt, you can marry 4 people. Whatever. Right? Does that mean I can marry 4 people? No. I can live in a country that says you can marry 37. All right, that's nice. Doesn't mean I can. The law of the church is above the law of the land. And so I don't really care what the law says. Marry them, don't marry them, marry not. You can marry gorilla. Okay. If the country says you can go marry gorilla, I don't need to get all upset about that. Can you believe they're going to pass a law where humans can marry? Whatever. You want to marry monkey? Marry monkey. I mean, if you ask me, is that the design of God's design for mankind? I would say no. Marrying a monkey is not God's design. 1 male and 1 female. Right? That's our belief. So sometimes we get carried away with this other stuff, and that leads me to the problems. What do you think, Kiro? All right. And glory be to God forever. Amen. Sorry it took so long. That's Kiro's way of